Hello. Hello, everyone. Hi, and welcome. Welcome. I know I've already said a welcome off before I hit record, but for those that are watching on the replay, welcome to Trust Your Triggers. For those of you here with me live, it is so good to have you here. I would actually love it if to sort of get some interaction, if you could put in the comments where you're from. Where you're from. Let me know where you're from, just so I can see like who's here, the parts of the world we're coming from, all of those wonderful things. I know that I've chatted with some of you. All right. Perth. Oh, I love Perth, Wendy. And my brother and sister are over there at the moment. I'm hoping to get over there at the end of the year. Coralie, New South Wales, Adelaide. Oh, New Zealand, kia ora. Um, Brisbane, Dubbo, Sydney, Perth, Sydney, Sunshine Coast, Young, New South Wales. I don't actually know where that is, Catherine. Um, what's Young near? Brisbane, Christchurch. Hello, Australia, New Zealand. Bringing it in hot and I love it. Melbourne. Oh, New Wagga. Cool. Okay. I was actually having a conversation with Jamie today, and we are talking about where she's from. It's like we when we use names of like bigger suburbs or cities so people know what it is and where it is. Awesome. This is, yeah, cool. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Let's get that up and running so I don't forget about that because I am very well known for just diving straight in and that one. Now let's make sure I get this right, hey? Um, okay. Got to move me. Zoom's changed. Zoom's changed a little bit. So can you tell me, can you see me on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. No worries. Let me make everyone here a little bit bigger. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. I recorded something and you couldn't see me at all, and I feel really weird about I know that I never watch videos or something if I can't see the presenter. I find it very boring. Um, although I'm sure some people would be quite happy not to actually have to see my face while I'm talking. So, welcome to Trust Your Triggers. I am really excited to share this with you. Now, before I do dive in, nearly forgot, let me bring up the chat as well. Here is the link to the PDF, so to your bonus workbook. So if you want to open that, you can. You can write on it. It's editable. If you just want to glance at it and write in a journal, that's fine. If you just wanted to sit back and listen for this session, that is also okay. I'm just I am just organizing my screen so I can see you, I can see the chat, and I can see the presentation because, Um, so this is a really interactive session, right? So if you have any questions, if I mention anything that you're unsure of or you want more detail or information about something, just let me know. Yeah, just let me know. I will also ask you questions throughout. I would really love for you to get involved. It's never really much fun talking to myself. And I feel like given that I talk to a 8-month-old and a 3-year-old the majority of my time, talking to adults feels really refreshing to me. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present, acknowledging that it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians on the land of which each of you are gathered. All right, so let's dive in. Let's hope this all works. Can you now see a picture of me that says, "Who am I?" Amazing. I'm not going to read off this. I am Jackie. I am from Melbourne, Nam. I'm a country girl at heart. I am a transformation mindset, energy coach, breathwork facilitator, mum, fitness lover, partner, dog mum, outdoor adventurer. There, I wear many different hats and I love it. My business is supporting women who have experienced trauma and navigating the other side of that. So we're able to remove the stories, the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors that we've created because of our trauma, so we can create a life that we love. I have a feeling I'm about to get a sneaky visitor, but I hope I don't. Um, so that is me. Okay. Today, what's going on here? The intention of today, obviously, we are talking about triggers and how you can trust them. Okay. Mostly, I want to I wanted to create this. So I created this for the women in my program, Ignite Your Inner Warrior. And the feedback that I got from it was really, really great. And I thought, why not offer it to everybody? Because I know that this is powerful work, right? And I know that so many of us get triggered. So the intention of today is to remove any stigma or stories that we might be carrying around that are making it harder for us to process and work through your stuff, to get more comfortable with your own triggers and to be able to identify them, and to support you to find your own practice and process to work through when you are triggered. Oh my God, I keep getting notifications on all different ways. Like, oh, okay. I have no doubt that there is some awareness about triggers, because if you weren't aware of your triggers, you wouldn't be here, right? I'm pretty sure if you saw, my posts and stuff, you'd be like, it's not me. But the fact that you're here tells me that you are aware of your triggers. The extent of that knowledge and also your connection to those triggers will vary from person to person. So, what I'm sharing tonight for some of you may not be new, for others, it will be. But what it will do is give you the space to really explore what's going on for you and how you can use your triggers to your advantage. Oh, God, this computer's going to give me the shits tonight, isn't it? Sorry, everyone. Okay. So, what are triggers? Being triggered in some spaces has become a bit of a catchphrase, right? It's become a bit of a token thing that we say, something that's used when people aren't actually triggered. I've heard some, not to be ageist, younger people be like, get upset by something and they're like, oh, I'm so triggered of it. And I just find it really offensive. I find it really offensive. But what is it? What is it when we're triggered? We are triggered when we have an emotional response to something, which becomes a sensory reminder that causes painful memories of or certain symptoms to resurface, right? So it is an emotional response to something that we experience. Basically, being triggered means you experience a strong negative emotional reaction in response to a situation that you're in that's disturbing or upsetting to you in some way. What do I mean by emotional reaction? So many different things, but anxiety, shortness of breath, nervousness, the shakes, fear, anger, sadness, any type of emotion, flashbacks, entering fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode, dissociation, migraines, headaches, all kinds of things. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Are there anything that, like, is there anything that you experience that isn't on this list? When you're triggered, is there something that I haven't included on this list that you're like, this really needs to be on there? Is there a reaction? I can think of, like, there's another one you could shut down. I'm just waiting to see whether anyone else comments. Lash out, defensiveness. Yes, beautiful. Not beautiful, like it's really shit when it happens, but good answers. Overwhelming pressure, ruminating. Yeah, ruminating's huge. Ruminating is huge. Um, I know Lisa and a few others in Sky who are both in IWA can testify that we speak quite a lot in that group about ruminating, like a number of people ruminate. Looping, yep. Okay, so ruminating, feelings of devastation. Yep, huge anxiety. Yep, 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 yep. So ruminating is when you constantly think about the same thing over and over and over again. So it's kind of like you can't get out of you can't stop thinking about something, and often it's from the past. So, let's say, I don't know, let's say you broke up with your partner and then, you want them back, and all you do is think about the certain situations and experiences and things that have happened, and you just can't stop playing out certain scenarios. And maybe there's a, pivotal moment that led to that breakup, and it might be like ruminating over how that played out. Yeah. Cool. I'm glad that makes sense. All right. So why do we get triggered? Now, you'll find that a lot of the stuff that I share with all of the work that I do, and especially tonight, there is no one size fits all, right? There is no one size fits all. And it's really important for me to say that, partly because I don't ever want anyone to feel like, and I don't want you to feel like if someone experiences something and you don't, that you make yourself wrong for that. Or if someone processes something in one way, that you should be doing that as well, because I feel like that can be really shitty as well. So your situation, we get triggered because of your situation and your circumstances, right? What you have experienced throughout your life, your traumas, your challenges, your adversity, it's yours. And ultimately, that's why you get triggered. You get triggered when something happens and reminds you in some way of a negative experience that you've had. And when I say remind you, I don't necessarily mean having memories or flashbacks. Some people do, but it may be a feeling or a sensation of like just this real unsettledness. And again, for some of you, you might be here going, I get triggered all the time and I actually have no idea why, right? That's why you're here. And for some of you, you'll be like, yeah, I get triggered and I know why, but I don't know what to do with it. Yeah. So let's make it a little bit more real. Let's look at the different types of triggers. And as I said, the reason that we get triggered will vary from person to person, but we can also have internal or external triggers. So, some examples of internal triggers and what an internal trigger is. It's exactly that. An internal trigger is something that arises within you, right? It might be a memory, a physical sensation, or an emotion. One example might be if you are exercising, your heart starts pounding. That sensation may remind you of a time when you were running away from something, and just having that same physical response can cause you to be triggered. Yeah, let me know if any of this isn't making sense, or give me an emoji or a reaction or something if it is. Some other internal triggers, we can look at anger, anxiety, loneliness, muscle tension, spasms, feeling overwhelmed, vulnerable, abandoned, or out of control, ruminating, as we said before, memories, a statement, phrase, or belief that you say to yourself, pain, sadness, and basically any other emotion that causes distress. Yeah, so anything that is solely you, the response is solely within you, that's an internal trigger. Now, if we look at external triggers, they're the opposite, right? They come from our environment, and they can be caused by a person, a situation, or a place. And what some people might deem, my words are not working, what some people might view as normal or an everyday situation or a slight annoyance can be really triggering to people, right? Depending on your experiences. And this is why when we talk about triggers, sometimes it can be really harmful because we downplay our reactions because we don't think it's, big enough, or because someone else has experienced something worse than us. So we kind of talk ourselves out of having that, which just means that we're suppressing and ignoring part of us. So some examples of external triggers. I'm very passionate about this, in case you can't tell. A movie, a television show, a news article, something like that. The news can be pretty heavy. I don't really watch the news. A person connected to an experience. So you might see someone that you've had, that something has happened with, that can be a cause of a trigger. Arguing with a friend, spouse, or partner, or seeing other people argue or fight. A specific time of day or month or year, certain sounds, changes in relationships or relationships ending can be big triggers. Something someone says, significant dates such as holidays or anniversaries, going to specific locations that remind you of experiences, smells, tastes, sounds. Yep, Catherine, music. Yeah, all of those things. I still have, give like raise your hand or like give me an emoji in the comments. Like, do you still have songs from like when you were really young that remind you of like friends or boyfriends or girlfriends or, like moments and you're like, oh my God, and you still remember every single word to that song? Because I'm amazed. Yeah, amazed. Some song came on the other day and it was like, I think it was the song that I first kissed a boy to, Savage Garden. And it came on, I was like, oh my God. Like it was just as soon as I heard that song, that was that moment. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone's with me here, right? It's yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how we can really, really relate to certain things. All right. So let's now look at the misconceptions and stigmas around triggers. What are, yes, music can resonate so good. What are some misconceptions or negative connotations associated with triggers that you have heard or from your perspective? I'd love to know. Like, what have you heard? What do you see? What are you worried about? Like, if you get triggered, do you have any fear or resistance about sharing that with people? Some people typing. That's all right. Um, Being stuck in the past. Some are too big to hide. Yeah. How to get out of it when you're in it. Told I'm overreacting. Feeling like I'm too damaged to be around others. Yeah. Um, some people see it as a weakness. Yep. People feel like they're walking on eggshells around you. Oh, yeah. And it's like, makes me really angry because it's like, it says so much about the other person. The fact that if you're triggered, they're like, oh, whoa, don't, I don't, like they make it about them. They make it about them when it's not. Um, that you damaged. Yeah. Yeah. All of these are so, so true. All of them are so true. And yeah, you're weak, you're triggered. Um, Triggers snowball and ongoing consequences. Yeah. 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 And that can be true. And it also can be a myth and stigma. So here are some others like you're weak. You shouldn't talk about it if you're triggered. You're too sensitive. Another like your past shouldn't bother you anymore. Can't you just get over it? You just need to let it go. It's your fault that you're triggered. You'll always be triggered, that you can't move past it. It's attention seeking. Only people with mental health issues get triggered. I could go on forever and I'd probably get really, really mad. But what do you think? So, from what you've shared and also these ones on the screen at the moment, what do you think these stories do to us as a society and for us individually when we're navigating something? What do you think? So, knowing that, let's like, use the example like you're triggered, but in your head, you've got these stories, these misconceptions, isolating, um, make us feel worthless. I shut down, that we shouldn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. 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 It's a limiting belief. I hide away. Yep. And how sad is that that's how we feel, that's how we've been made to feel. It is so harmful. So harmful because in order to process something, we need to acknowledge it. Yet society's perception of what is okay leads us to suppressing and hiding, which again means that we're not processing or acknowledging it. We're just trying to soldier on, right? Um, yeah, all of these are so, so, so true. So now let's look at a different way of viewing triggers. It can be used against us. Yes, 100% it can. And, you and I know that the people that use it against us are not nice people, but sometimes the people that use it against us are the closest to us. Um, so a different way. viewing it and how triggers should. I don't often say should about anything or that I don't prescribe to there's a certain way, a right or wrong. But being triggered is not something that we should be ashamed of. It is a genuine reaction based on an experience that you've had. Triggers are also not something that you try and hide or get rid of or fix so they never happen again. Right? Triggers should be viewed with love and kindness and compassion and an openness to what our inner warrior, our inner guidance, our authentic self is trying to show us and teach us. Whenever we're triggered, and imagine this, imagine if we stopped and took a moment and thought, okay, cool, something's going on here that needs my attention. Now it's time to truly listen to and nourish my body and work through both my reaction and my response to this trigger, but also, give me the space to identify and acknowledge why it's there. Imagine. Imagine if we got triggered and we went, okay, cool. Now, I've got some work to do. Instead of I'm triggered, fuck, I can't let anyone know. I need to work through this. Like, what am I going to do? We almost enter a panic attack because of the fear of other people and the fear of judgment, as well as the actual trigger, right? And when we open ourselves up to acknowledging our truth, we're then providing ourselves the chance to heal parts of ourselves. We are only ever triggered if you have an experience that deeply impacts you, right? You are only ever triggered if you have an experience that deeply impacts you. If something happens and you've never experienced that or you have no connection to it, you're not going to be triggered by it, right? Because this doesn't happen. No one is triggered just because. So let's remove the bullshit narrative that we shouldn't be triggered because it's unrealistic and it's setting ourselves up for disappointment. Now, here's the fun bit. Why triggers are fucking awesome. So awesome. And this is where we get into the juicy bits, right? And I used to avoid anything that would cause me to be triggered. I would avoid anything that caused me to be triggered. And if I'm really honest with you, for those of you who don't know and are new to my community, I was so detached and a very, very different person to what you see now. I wouldn't have even known if I was triggered. I would have known what a triggered was. I just soldiered on autopilot and wasn't connected to my intuition or my emotions at all. It was just like I was the person that got shit done and I was the reliable one and I was the happy one, right? I was the pretend extrovert because that's what people wanted me to be. But now I really love triggers. I love being triggered. Well, I don't love being triggered. It's not a fun time in the moment, but I love the invitation and the expansion that comes with it when I am, right? When we're triggered, it's an invitation to go deeper, to do more soul searching, a deeper inquiry into ourself, greater healing, and in turn, even greater expansion. There is not a single thing that can't open you up more, that can't expand you more, that can't allow you to connect with your inner warrior even more, as long as you approach it with the right mindset and belief. So if we stop looking at ourselves as being broken when we're triggered and instead realize that the fact that we're open and we're self-aware enough to know that we are triggered, it's actually an incredible thing. Having that personal insight is amazing, right? Because not everybody does. Being an intuitive person and being open to doing the healing and answering the call when the universe speaks changes everything. If you let triggers guide you rather than block you, you'll learn how to heal really quickly. You'll be able to move through things really quickly. And the other pretty cool thing is that when you're triggered because of one thing, if you choose to look at what's happened and not run from it, the response that you have in the future will not be as great. It's kind of like the more you face it, the easier it becomes. Thank you for sharing that, Catherine. I think that's a good thing. Um, I feel like the tears are from that. Yeah, it's powerful. Like, what if we actually empowered ourselves when we were triggered? What if we allowed ourselves to be okay? And for this to be like being sensitive is a fucking superpower as opposed to something we should hide from and run away from. Yeah. Um, I used to work in I used to be a police officer. What if the trigger brings up things that can't be sorted? That's an interesting one. And Wendy, I'm going to come back to that one. I'm going to come back to that one. Um, how do we know if you're avoiding triggers within a relationship? Oh, hang on. Just lost it. Here we go. Ah. How do we know if we're avoiding triggers within a relationship when it's actually the relationship doesn't suit? Okay. All right. So let's answer these. What if the trigger brings up things that can't be sorted? So I guess if I'm the way that I read this is like you're wanting closure, you're wanting to resolve things. And sometimes we have the ability to resolve things with others, and other times we can't. And if it's one of those situations where you can't resolve it and can't get closure from the other person, we have to find it internally, right? I am opening it up for questions at the end. So if you want to dive deeper into that, we absolutely can. How do you know if you're avoiding triggers within a relationship when it's actually a relationship that doesn't serve you? I'm going to gently pass the baton back to you there, Rachel, and say, I feel like that question kind of answers itself a little bit. If you think that you're avoiding certain things in a relationship, my question would be why? Like, what's the fear around what would happen? Again, if you want to dive into this in the questions part, we absolutely can. Um, and in your heart of hearts, I truly believe that we all know whether a relationship doesn't serve us. I left a 6.5 year relationship 4.5 years ago. Um, and it was a good relationship, but I knew it didn't serve me. Right. Yes, okay. I sought professional help to understand my emotions. Why I think the way I do, seeking that help was used against me. So why would I seek professional help? No, I'm so sorry. It's um I I reckon over the span of 10 years or like 6, 7 different psychologists, and none of them did anything for me. And then I found my psychologist, who is a dream. Um, and I get it, like that resistance to be like, well, why would I seek help when the people who are meant to help me don't help me? I guess the only thing that I can say to that is it's ultimately your choice. But if we choose to see it as there are more than one person, and if you're open to learning or open to having that support and having that help, then you will find someone who can help you and support you. Um, I left a 15-year relationship to reconnect and find myself. Yeah, yeah. And, for me, as I said, an example of how my response to triggers changed. I was in the police force, and when I was 15, I was sexually assaulted, and it was not something that I ever told anybody. Um, it led to a lot of depression, suicidality, that kind of thing, and just cyclical depression for 15 years. And when I was in the police force, I didn't tell anyone. I was adamant that I would never work in that division. I would never work as a detective within sex crimes. And I'm like, nah, nah, wouldn't do it, not interested. Like, really kind of downplayed the reason why, knowing very full well that I hadn't done the work and I hadn't healed myself. So there was no way that I could support other people in that space. And then I did the work and I did the healing and I healed my stuff. And then I started working at Monash University as an investigation and risk assessment specialist, and we were the go-to first responders for sexual assaults and for victims of sexual assaults. And having done that work for myself, I was able to support people so deeply, so deeply. Um, I probably should have mentioned this in the in my intro about my experience and qualification. So, like, that I'm legit to talk about this, not just someone that's making it all up. But it changes everything when we allow ourselves to, um, when we allow ourselves to open up to our triggers and to our learning and our healing and don't make ourselves wrong for it, it really does change everything. Kim, a third party could get access to my trick. Oh, I'm so sorry. Not only is that unprofessional, it is so damaging, right? I actually have no words, and I'm sorry that that happened to you. So let's now look at like some tips to navigating triggers, right? Again, not set in stone, not a one size fits all. And what you do when you're triggered is going to be different to the other person, right? But I wanted to give you some suggestions to support you. Again, I don't want you to walk away going, well, Jackie said I have to do this, so I have to do this. Not the case, right? These are just some things to think about, some tools and tips to practice and implement if you choose. You might do one, you're like, that doesn't work for me. That's okay, right? Um, Self-care has to be a priority. Self-care has to be number one. But let's break it down a little bit more. Okay. So if we have a physical response, so if your trigger is a physical response, the first thing I suggest is to create space for yourself so you can calm yourself, settle the physical sensations, and allow yourself to reconnect with the thoughts and feelings that you're having. You're likely going to go into fight or flight if it's physical. So you have to create some space to calm and be able to bring yourself into the present. When we're in fight or flight, we're not present, right? Or we can be present, but we're really like, everything's jacked up. It's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. So from there, once you've sort of brought yourself to the present, you've allowed yourself to calm, the physical response isn't as strong, you can start to do a check-in. Focus on the areas of your body that have had the reaction, whether it's a breath, whether it's your heart, whether it's your hands, like whatever it is, and just go through a practice that allows you to calm each of those body parts. It might be looking at that body part and, I know everyone is different. So some people might be visual and some people might be sensations, that kind of thing. So you might look at a color that that body part's having, or there might be something happening within that body part, or it might just be a matter of breathing into that body part, right? So the physical response is just about calming and creating space for yourself. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about physical responses? I'll come back to them. I'm mindful of like, there's always like this little pause, there's this awkward silence. So if we look at thought responses, so if your trigger relates to and response relates to thoughts, it can be really powerful to have a statement that brings you back into the present moment and your current reality, right? Because often if we're thinking about something where, we're thinking about the past, right? So it can be really easy to get lost in our thoughts and ruminate when we're triggered and go back to moments or situations and just continue to play that over and over and over again. Yep, this too shall pass. Amazing. So good. And you could also look at things like, I'm safe right now. No one is hurting me right now. I'm supported right now. This too shall pass. I can do hard things. That can be the circuit breaker to kind of bring you like tap out of your mind, not tap out of your mind, but like switch that ego mind off and reconnect with you. The right now, I've got this. Yeah, I've got this. So the right now part or in this moment can be really powerful to tell your brain this is what's happening right now. Because our brain can't tell the difference between reality and imagination, right? So if we're thinking of a memory, like our mind is there and we think it's happening. So if we're like, no, I'm safe right now, it tells the brain that that's not actually what we're experiencing. Okay. And again, then you can start to differentiate between the trigger and what you're starting to ruminate about and what's happening for you right now. Then you can do some self-coaching around what is true for you right now and what your triggers are. Again, I feel like this is really surface level. It's not surface level, but these are tips that I just want like to be easy to implement, right? So when I work with my clients and everything like that, if they're triggered, we go into it a lot more, right? And again, I have the ability and opportunity to coach them through certain situations. So then if we look at emotional responses, so if your response relates to emotions, allowing those emotions to come up, feel what's arising, and then spend time sitting with that. And half of you are probably like, you can fuck off because I don't want to do that. Right? Feeling our emotions is not always fun, right? And we're so used to trying to suppress them because society tells us that there are certain emotions that are okay and there are certain emotions that are not, right? So moving through triggers and building resilience around your triggers means that you need to be able to process those emotions. You need to be able to feel them when they arise. So taking time to be with it, noticing what's going on, giving yourself space and grace. Yeah, feeling feels like learning that emotional regulation. Let yourself feel it. Feel whatever arises initially. And as the dust settles, spend time working through it. It was funny. I had a conversation with my partner the other day and we are talking about emotional regulation. He's not great at it. Not great at it. And I said that. And he's like, well, would you say you are? I'm like, yeah, I think I'm exceptional at emotional regulation. He goes, but you cry all the time. I went, yeah, that's part of my regulating. And he was kind of, he's like, oh, like he was very confused by it. Um, but that is it. Like it's feeling those feelings and letting them surface, letting whatever needs to come up, come up. Um, we had a situation last week where we bought a house, put an offer on a house. It was accepted, all of that. Amazing. We're excited. I've like, rang childcares. I've done all this thing. We're mentally living in this house, right? We're like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to change this. We're going to do this. And we sent the contracts to our conveyancer. And the following day, the following morning, the agent rang me. He's like, I need you to sign the contracts. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting them. I'm just waiting for our conveyancer to approve it, like to say that it's okay and whatever, because it's a pretty basic contract. I'm like, well, I get that, but I'm not a lawyer. So it's going to be signed. We want the house, all of this stuff. And he kept sort of putting pressure on me, and I was going away and I ran out of service. And Chris rang and my partner. He's like, we just all need to calm down. He's like, okay. Anyway, we had a building inspection booked for 4 o'clock. 3:30, we got the approval from our conveyancer. I rang Chris, my partner. He rings me at the same time. I'm like, hey, he's like, they've sold our house. I went, what? He's like, they've sold our house to someone else because the owner thought we were taking too long. And I don't think I spoke for 5 minutes, probably two. It was probably one in reality. It was like, are you still there? I'm like, yep. And then I just burst into tears and I sobbed for probably 2 hours. I rang the agent, I abused him. I rang my mortgage broker. He was like raging with me. Hunter, my 3-year-old, was trying to give me lollies to stop me crying and to wipe my tears. It's like, you sad, mum? Yes, mate, I'm so I'm sad. And so I cried and I cried and I cried and I let that out. And then I kind of took a breath and I went, I just feel like we've dodged a bullet, right? I just feel like we've dodged a bullet. Anyway, and I just share that to show and then I woke up the next morning, like, I'm a little bit emotionally hungover from all of the emotions that I moved yesterday, but I'm okay, right? And so that's the power of having that emotional regulation. So anytime you are triggered, especially majorly, as I was on the week last week, you may find that you're a little bit exhausted or a lot exhausted, fatigued, and out of sorts for a day or two. It's really natural, right? It's again an emotional hangover. It's your body experiencing some sort of shock. So it needs time to recalibrate. So often we get triggered and we're like, oh, okay, all right, well, back to work. And your body doesn't have these times. And so then we can get re-triggered by the same thing and the response can be stronger because we haven't given ourselves the time to recalibrate and just process what's going on. And just, I think again, we're very good at hustling and sometimes we just need to pause, right? We need to rest. So just go easy on yourself if you do have a moment where you are triggered quite significantly. And to give you a little bit of personal insight, my daughter suffers anxiety and is exhausted all the time and needs a nap after. Yeah, of course. Of course. So Hunter, my 3-year-old, he's super sensitive, and he's an empath. Um, and I see it in him. Like he can have huge responses, and you just see his little body being like, oh my God, like, how do I process this? And so it is, like they need a nap or they need a big cuddle or they just need quiet time afterwards. And we give it to children, but we don't give it to ourselves. Right. And if you think that's probably a really easy way to look at it, like what would you do if your child or if your friend's child, a child that you like, was triggered or had this experience? How would you treat them? How would you tend to them? How would you care for them? And do that for yourself. And the internal exploration, for me, it's a question of why. Like, what's happened? What's just happened? What was my response and reaction to it? Why did I have that reaction? Is this a result of what I've just experienced, or is this a result of something from my past? Right? What is my body and inner warrior trying to tell me or let me know? Is there anything that needs to be acknowledged or released? And what is the invitation moving forward? Right? What is the invitation moving forward? What needs to be seen? The truest invitation when you're triggered is to go deeper, is to allow yourself to explore that when you're safe to do so, right? So you're not going to get triggered and then be like, right, we're going into this. Like that, you're not going to be, you're not going to have the capacity to think and process clearly if you're still in that trigger or like straight afterwards, you know, depending on it, an hour, 2 hours a day. Like there is no time frame, but it is an invitation to go deeper. Approach the situation and yourself with love and kindness and face whatever's coming through so you can genuinely move forward. Right, I've done so much talking. I'm gonna close this. Let me, whoop, hang on. Let me stop sharing my screen first. Hi, I can see all your faces again now, and I can come. So, does anyone have any questions? You can raise your hand if you want to talk to me. I'm happy to talk to people. I'm going to come back to Wendy, although Wendy, I think Wendy might have left. Wendy or Rachel, if you want extra like support or anything on the questions that you asked earlier, let me know. Um, how long, I'm just going through the chat that I missed. Self-soothing. How long can a physical trigger last? I don't have an answer for that. It could be a couple of seconds, minutes, hours. I wouldn't say that it would go on for days. Like it might go on to a degree, but I feel like that's more of like the aftershock of the initial thing. It really depends on what the physical response is. I know some people have like if they have seizures and that kind of stuff or hand like cramps and that yeah, I don't have an answer for that one, unfortunately. Sorry, Nicole. Um, Vanessa, I found when I was triggered, food was my worst connection because I couldn't say no to other people's needs. So now I'm on my own. I now carry extra weight, those issues. Although I'm now trying to work on my food, but now it's the loneliness that kicks in and I get stuck emotionally. I want to do so much, but now I don't have the body. It's really good, like really good insight, Vanessa, in the sense of like, okay, like this was my go-to, this was my comfort, you know, and as a result, that's what's happened. Um, and I would suggest there, it's just like if the loneliness and that part of you causes you to be triggered, just to um, take a moment and don't reach for food. And I'm saying that specifically for Vanessa because foods are go-to and foods are trigger. Um, but just kind of whether it's drink a glass of water or step outside or do something like that. Um, how can you unpack? Is this a result of what I've just experienced or the result of something in the past? Have no memories from my past and don't know what is a trigger and what is a normal response to a tricky situation. It's a ripper question. That's a ripper question, Rach. Rachel, sorry, I'll just call you Rach. I'm just gonna, abbreviate everyone. Hello, country bogan. Um, okay. So having no memories of the past, I've had quite a few clients that have had that, and it's really challenging. I guess it's more in that situation. So if you don't have the memories of the past, if you do, obviously it's easier to disassociate and connect what is true. If you find yourself triggered and those emotions or responses are heightened, I would take some time. And again, whenever you feel like you're in the right frame to do it, and just kind of think like, is like, just kind of like dive into it a little bit. Like, what happened? And that's like those questions that I had up there. What happened? What was my response? Is this, I don't want to say normal because it's not. Um, and maybe one way to do it is like, if I was having a good day, would this situation have bothered me? Like, if I was having a good day, would this situation have bothered me? Um, and also sometimes we just don't have the tools to navigate some things. There are still times where I, handle things in very poor ways because I haven't had to experience that before, you know? Does that help? Or do you want to elaborate a little bit more? Happy for you to unmute. I can ask you to unmute. That should bring up a thing for
Oh,
you.
there we
There we
go,
go.
found it. Yeah, maybe I'll stay on afterwards
Yeah.
if
Well,
that's all right.
um cool. Yeah, we can do that. Um okay. Yeah, let's do that. No worries. Happy to do
Thank
that.
you.
And obviously if there's anything you want to voice in here, you're welcome to as well, but also honoring whatever you want to talk. Um Kim, invitation to move forward. What if you're constantly triggered and you get overwhelmed? I find that I procrastinate with the most simple tasks. Okay, there's kind of a couple of questions in here, Kim. Where are you? I'm trying to find you. Like everyone's screen keeps moving. Oh, Kim, you're the fox. Um, um, what do you mean? Can you, if you're comfortable, unmute yourself? Like, what do you mean by constantly triggered? Do you feel like you're constantly triggered or you just live in a state of overwhelm all the time? Right.
Hi there, I'm Kim.
Hi.
So it is almost a constant state of overwhelm. Um, it's even to-do list.
Yep.
And I can give you an example. When I make my breakfast, I have now got a habit of kind of, sitting having my breakfast and while checking my emails, for example. Or possibly actually looking at a video, and then once I finish my breakfast, I'm still looking at videos, and that just turns into doom scrolling. Um, and so yeah, for example, um, there's just so much on my to-do list
That it's overwhelming, so you don't
that
do
it's
it.
overwhelming. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I have my triggers. I'm not quite sure of them, but
Mhm.
hence why I'm here.
Yep.
But I'm in a situation where um it's to do with my son and how he's not in my care.
Mm.
And I don't know how he is, his well-being. And every time I see the carer's email, every time I see he's involved with Oranga Tamariki here in New Zealand, which is kind of like child, family, whatever. And every time I see something from them, my emotions rise. Um, and so yeah, it's sometimes it's like um I equate it to, if you think like an A4 piece of paper, and which is kind of like your coping, right?
Yeah.
So my coping, I've only got about 2 or 5 mil at the top. That's
Yeah.
my coping.
Yeah.
So if there's a leak in the in
Yeah.
the sink, and then there's the cat spews, or it gets too much
Yeah.
basically.
Um, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that that's your situation right now. And I'd be triggered too, and it's you being triggered, right? Having those emails or seeing that from the carers, it's 100% a trigger because it is that emotional response to not having your son, to not
Mhm.
knowing what's happening, to not knowing how he is. I I couldn't imagine it. Um, and so there's kind of two pieces here to this, right? So it's navigating that and what does that look like moving forward? And in terms of the overwhelm, um, there's probably a constant state of like fight, flight, as you said, like your capacity is just not is non-existent basically. So instead of looking at your to-do list of all of the things before you go to bed each night, or maybe before, when you first wake up, you just pick one. So it's like, this is actually, no, I feel like you do you. I feel like the night before would be more supportive because at least then you know what you're going to do. But just be like, I'm just going to get this one thing done. And if I do anything else, great. But if not, that's good. Right. And so anytime we have heaps of things to do, it is so overwhelming. Right. It is so overwhelming. Not to mention that you constantly have this underlying energy of what is going on. What is going on? So your physical body is here, your mind and your emotions are not because they're with your son, right? They're worrying, they're wondering what's going on. And so it's like, well, how can I do this when this is, this is what matters the most to me, but I have no idea and I can't resolve that. Whereas I think, and again, obviously I don't know you, you're a fox. If we were to just pick one thing and just be like, and just see how it goes for a couple of days. And feel free to message me. Feel free to message me after this in a couple of days if you want. And just be like, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to do this one thing and I'm just going to go from there. Like, I feel like you just need to give yourself a little bit of compassion, a little bit of kindness, and um, maybe it's an invitation. Don't have your phone with you when you have breakfast. Like phones are real suckers of time, right? And they're also like they give us the dopamine hit, but then they also become that distraction and avoidance. And I feel like some presence right now in your life and what you need to do and what will support you would really support you. Does that make sense?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Does that help you? Is that supportive?
Uh, it it's kind of stuff that I know. Um, but again, it's it's become a habit now to have the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
And so I understand about the, just doing one thing on your to-do list. But for me, it's, as I said, there's lots of things that need to be done. And now currently I've got a time pressure and it's like, I, you know, it's like I either need to like do things when I kind of have to wait for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I've just realized today, I got a letter in my email saying that, my registration is up for renewal on the 31st of October. I left and leaving things to the last minute. So I haven't done it and it's gone out of my mind. And I've just realized today that I still haven't done it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
So I'm going to lovingly call you out here a little bit
go for it.
in that you like what you're almost making excuses to justify what you're doing that you know doesn't support you. And 100% it's become a habit. So anytime
Yep.
we have a habit, it's hard to break,
Hmm.
right? And so in this moment, you have a choice. You can be like, I know this and I do this and I get that this is my reality, but I choose right now to do things differently. So if you need to find a way, whether it's like doing a brain dump of like all of the things that you need to do and then writing the dates or times or whatever next to them and then prioritizing them and putting them in order. So it's like, okay, like getting really micromanage your to-do list from the point of view of like, I know what I need to do when I need to do it instead of, oh yeah, I'll get to that, I'll get to that, I'll get to that. And then maybe you do that when you have your breakfast instead. So it's like you could kick off tick off some of your to-do list while you're having your breakfast. And again, not every day is going to be perfect, right? There's going to be
Mm.
some days that you start eating breakfast and you scroll your phone, you're like, oh shit, like what am I doing? Just put it aside. Yeah. Um, it's hard, right? It is hard to create change and create new habits, kind of off the topic of triggers, but also
Yeah.
honoring the fact that you are triggered constantly, which has then led to these bad habits,
Hmm.
right? It's an avoidance strategy.
Yep, I know.
Yeah. And so maybe the question to sit with after this is, what am I afraid will happen if I actually do what I want to do? Because right now, you know what life is like right now, and you know that, you know, this is how it is. And sometimes we want more for ourselves and we want to feel better, but we're petrified of what it actually looks like because we don't know.
So you said for me that I've learned that I need kind of reassurance that it's going to sort of work out before I try. So I need sort of some kind of
Certainty.
yeah, certainty, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've found that in regards to dealing with OT and the carer, that
Yeah.
there's no certainty around anything in
Yeah.
regards to my son
Yeah.
because they lie, among other things,
Yeah.
and
So,
don't keep their appointments.
yeah. So our attachment to certainty and I used to be the same. Like I used to be like, nope, if I don't know the outcome, I'm not going to do it. When we try and control things too much, it's unhealthy, right? So there has to be moments where you start to trust yourself and do the thing without knowing what it's going to look like. Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well,
Okay.
yeah. And I genuinely mean it. Like, please feel free to reach out to me after this. Um, just mindful of time and the other questions.
Yeah, okay. Yes, the same. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It was great, great conversation. I can see everyone else like, you know. Catherine, how do you know the difference between getting triggered daily or is it PDS? Um, that's hard to know without knowing the situation and the circumstances. Um, Depending on whether you have been diagnosed or not with PTSD, um, I'm not a psychologist. Um, that'll impact it. Sometimes it can be both. People with PTSD can be triggered daily because of their PTSD, right? So it could be a combination, and I don't even know if you need to know the difference, right? I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, well, I guess my question, does it matter? Like you're having that physical response and you're having that reaction. Does it matter whether you're triggered or does it matter whether it's the PTSD? Because it can be one of those things where it's like the process might still be the same. Self-care and the nurturing still needs to be done. Um, yeah. And again, I'm happy to talk more about this like after this or email or socials or whatever. Um, yeah, just um, sometimes again, then this sort of relates to the certainty piece. We feel like we have to label everything. We have to know everything. We have to put everything in a category. And sometimes there is no category. Like, you could put them in boxes or columns. I kind of like have this visual of like the science cylinders. That's not the right terminology. Clearly, I did very well in science at school. The difference between like those little science cylinders, beakers, whatever, and just like a cup full of water, right? Sometimes things just blend in, and it is what it is. And then other times, like, but I feel like sometimes we spend so long trying to make sense of things or label things instead of focusing on ultimately yourself and what you can do to support yourself through that. Um, Catherine, pick three from the list and leave it there. Try not to overthink it. Yeah, it's hard to navigate. Angela, it's hard to navigate triggers, especially when you're in pain from past hurts and reminders. Yeah, it's not a light topic. It's not an easy thing, right? None of the work that I do, someone said to me, a friend, they're like, do you really enjoy like talking about these topics? I'm like, I do because I see the growth from them, right? But the topics and the things that I work with my clients on and that I teach, they're not easy. If they were easy, I wouldn't have a business, right? No one would work with me, because they wouldn't need me. It's really hard to navigate triggers. And ultimately, when we're triggered, we are at our most vulnerable state, right? Being triggered is like all band-aids are off and that wound is there, right? And again, like it can be a combo. Like for me, it was very much I needed to heal from my past, and there's a lot of trauma from the past. I needed to heal from that before I could then look at other things. But then those big things that I had to heal from, like they're okay. I still occasionally get triggered by certain things. And now sometimes I'm triggered by a new situation, and it's like, well, which is like it's kind of leaning into which feels more important, the healing or the processing, but often processing the trigger heals the wound. But when we have those big wounds that are unhealed from the past, they need some attention first, because if we're not healed from them, those triggers are going to keep happening. Does that make sense? But yeah, it's not easy, and it's not light, it's not fluffy, it's deep work. It is deep work, but it's really fucking powerful work. Like what greater act of self-love, and not many people would see it this way, is there than actually paying yourself attention around your triggers, giving yourself that time and space, being like, I deserve this. I deserve to not have to go through this or feel like this. So I'm going to give myself this time and space to do what I need. Like it is self-love to the core, but so often we're living in that fight flight, so we don't see it like that. We just have like the mechanical process to it instead of the heart, instead of that heart and that connection. Um, Self-discipline, trust yourself. So it's not the no, it's the not knowing. Listen to your inner voice. I hope this is allowed. I listened to a licensed therapist named Lauren Wheeler, and she has a podcast called The Positive Experience, and another site where you can sign up and download worksheets. Of course it's allowed. Of course it's allowed. Always share resources. Absolutely. Can you heal from the past if you don't know what happened? Yeah, I believe you can. I believe you can. Um, and maybe it's not a matter of healing what happened. It's a matter of healing the feelings. It's like processing like that, whatever you're going through or whatever you're experiencing or whatever your reality is right now, like healing that part of you. And often, it's very common for me to work with people who will do certain things, and then in different actions and stuff that I give them, they're like, oh, hang on. I they're like, I've just remembered this thing, and I could have completely forgotten. Right. And so sometimes we just have so much trauma that we put blocks in. Um, I'm the same. I've had lots of blocks in my life, and then every now and again remember things. Sometimes I cringe. A lot of the time I cringe. I'm like, oh, that happened. So yeah, I think you can. It's just a process. Um, Thanks for answering my question going around in my head. How do how do you process your trauma? As in, Adeline, are you asking me how do I process it? Yeah. Um, well, it's kind of the last slide, but mine, I let myself feel the emotions or let myself experience what's going on, and then spend some time grounding and just sort of recentering, and then work through the questions that were on the last slide around like what's happened, what's this related to, what do I need to know, where am I being, like, what's the invitation here? It really depends on what the trigger is, and depends on what the trigger is and what the response is. So the reaction, the response, and then going through that. But it's very much about acknowledging it and facing it. I'm a breathwork facilitator, so I do a lot of breathwork and meditation. I'm also an energy coach, so sometimes the three all combine, and that helps me really get out of my head, because I overthink everything. So having the ability to do that means that I can get out of my head and see the truth of what's going on. Um, and sometimes why I'm triggered is actually not why I thought, but it's just getting really curious about it, not critical, and just, yeah, allowing myself to be open to it. Does it stop the recurrence? Yeah. Yeah. I, yeah. So, I'm not sure if you were on or not, or whether you came in a little bit late. Um, I used to be triggered by a lot of things around sexual assault and was very blocked off to it and very, very sensitive to it, but had built such a tough walls that I didn't let it impact me. And then after I'd done spent a lot of time focusing on that and healing that, I had someone, just had a situation with someone, um, and surprised myself because I just had no emotional response or reaction to what we're talking about. I was just like, oh yeah, you know? And so, yeah, the more we're open to it, the easier it becomes. I actually had a friend and client who was triggered by someone. She saw someone from her past, and we went through, and like I was with her, not with her, but talking to her in that moment, like when she was triggered, and we just went through a process of um like breathing, making sure she was in a safe space, no one was around her or no one could hurt her, and just like really recentering and coming back to the present. And then she spent some time afterwards chatting about, or like thinking about, what happened, and just acknowledging why she was triggered. And then when she saw him again a couple of weeks later, she was like, I was still a little bit resistant, but it was certainly not the same as that first reaction. So it's like what we resist will persist, what we acknowledge will release. Monique, I'll do these as the last two, but please, if anyone has any questions after this, please, please, please reach out to me. Shaking helps to shake your body. Yeah, 100%. Movement is energy. Triggers are often energy stored. So movement, shaking, all of that, 100%, 100% helps. And that's often why in breathwork, you'll find people that shake and tremor and that kind of thing. And then I do some techniques to help with the subconscious mindset, which can help. Reach out if you need more guidance. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that. But yes, when you are open to it, what was the last thing you said? It's a very good question. What was the last thing I said? What you resist will persist. What you acknowledge will release. So the more you resist something, the more it's going to be there. When you choose to acknowledge it, the energy and impact that has on us releases. Yeah. So I do have one other final little, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And I turn the slides off because I prefer to see people. I much prefer to see people than look at slides. As I mentioned at the start of this, I have a program called Inner Warrior Activation, which is a 12-month container. And basically, it is for those of you who are ready to put yourself first, who are done with life feeling hard, who are fed up with having the same triggers, going through the same cycles and feel like you're not getting anywhere. I'm currently taking or opening the doors for a few weeks. I'm just copying the link and I'm going to pop it in here. I sent meeting group chat. I'm going to pop the link in the comments for you all. I'm opening the doors for those of you who want to be supported for all of 2025. This program, and we've been in the container for a few months now, is incredible. The people in there are amazing. The support in there is amazing. And it is a community, right? It is about bringing like-minded humans together so you can grow in a space where you aren't judged, you aren't criticized, you aren't put down, you are just held and seen just as you are. We are entering, I've mapped out the next 7 months worth of masterclasses. There's a shitload of value in there. And the next 7 months of masterclasses are, if I do say so myself, fucking epic, like so epic. I told everyone in the group yesterday what they were, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can literally screenshot their messages if you don't believe me. But they're also on the sales page, which I've dropped the link into. So the monthly masterclasses for the next 7 months are mapped out. But if you're here and you're like, I actually want to continue working on my triggers, I want to figure out what's going on. I really want to get to the core of this. I want to remove the overwhelm. I want to stop feeling burnt out. I want to actually feel like I can live my life. Then I invite you to check out Inner Warrior Activation. It is, I realize now what, my entire business and life has been building towards having this space and this container. Because I don't want any of you to feel like you're fine or even worse than fine. Like, I want you to feel like you can shine, that you can take up space, that you can use your voice, and that you are wanted and needed just as you are, because you are. Each and every one of you are. So I've dropped the link in there. The link will also be in the replay email that I'll send out probably tomorrow morning, depending on how long Zoom takes to download. If you have any questions, let me know. And this is just for people who have registered for tonight, if you join before Sunday, you go into the draw to win a 45-minute one-on-one with me. I'll be giving 3 of those away. And if you join before next Friday, I'm looking at my calendar and it's still set in October. So talk about not being on top of your to-do list. So I can't tell you the date, but next Friday, tomorrow week, you will also be invited to a group breathwork that I'm going to run just for people who signed up early the first time and also for this time, where we're going to look at like releasing the tension of 2024, clearing anything that needs to, and tapping into what we want 2025 to look like. So it's going to be a group breathwork ceremony, which, as I said, is only going to be for a few people. I am located in Melbourne, but the group breathwork will be online. So that specific one will be online. Yeah. I do breathworks online, virtually, and also in person. But I just want to say thank you. Like, thank you to each and every one of you for giving. I'm going to reframe that, for choosing to spend your evening with us. What that shows me is that you're really ready to take that next step. You're curious, you want to know more, you're ready to do the work. And if you want someone to support you, I would love to do that. It is my greatest passion, supporting people like learn to love themselves. And for some of you, I know that like, when I say that, you're like, oh, that's never going to happen. And that was me once upon a time, right? But ultimately, that's what we all want: the freedom and confidence to feel like we can be ourselves, the confidence to move through life without being worried about being triggered or upset or upsetting other people, right? Um, so just really, really, really want to thank you all for being here. Please reach out to me, whether it's via email, whether it's via socials, whatever you need. Um, I would love to support you if I can. I'm so open. I'm so open. Um, Thank you. Adlin, love your work. Been following. Oh, thank you. Great. Thank you for this awareness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my God. It's my pleasure. It is my absolute pleasure. If I could do these every day, I would. Like, I fucking love it. Right. And again, read the next 7 months of masterclasses. And we had a call on Tuesday night. And I'm like, oh my God, guys, you're not going to believe what we're doing over the next 7 months. Like, I was so like, I know Liz and Sky can testify. I was like fucking pumped. And then everyone's like, don't know what's going on with her, but I love it. This is my soul work and my life's work, and there's nowhere else I would rather be. And if anyone here would like to be supported in that, yeah, please check out Inner Warrior Activation. But if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you all have a beautiful evening. It's been really fun. Um, and any feedback or any questions, as I said, please, please, please reach out. All right, my loves. I'm gonna stop the. Oh, do you know what I've done? Oh no, there we go.